I'm from opportunity.to. If you have any questions, you can send emails to info@opportunity.to. So what are we offering today? Today we are offering the Competence Valuation platform. And what does it come down to at the end of the day? So as an employer, you're trying to maximize productivity, right? It's not about what is the cost, but you're actually trying to get the most yield out of dollars put into your business. And a lot of the time, the actual desire for underpaying an employee based on their productivity, people look at it at a very surface level. They say, oh, if I just can pay my worker less, I'll get more yield. But at the end of the day, what you're dealing with is relatively a small pool of people whom you are able to pick from a certain specialized competence. And what does that result in? It results in people whom have exposure to this responsibility improve their skills, and thus their compensation increases. And so it's very difficult sometimes for some employers to maintain that, because it's a global space to be competing in. So at the end of the day, I'm knowledgeable about this subject because I've seen with my own eyes individuals whom are absolutely high value people in regards to their competence not able to attain employment, which is absolutely depressing. This is not how the world should work. And those individuals whom may not have relatively high competency in a certain executable process at a job, I'm not going to speak about job titles, because I think this is like an 18th century way of describing work nowadays. I mean, everyone now has to work on a computer. Everyone needs to be familiar with technology. Otherwise, everything is slowly changing, okay? And in a way where automation is actually the desire. There's a lot of service-orientated jobs that will remain quite steady, but providing value consistently in a repeatable process in and itself is automation, and optimization of that is important. So for example, even in retail, what is your optimization for training high quality retail individuals? Do you have an executable process for improving your service staff? And so this is why I don't necessarily deem the job title so much important as what it used to be. And so this will reflect in the subject that I'm speaking today, and it's the competence valuation platform, which I think is by far the best idea which we've come up here with at opportunity.to. So we have our job app. We've seen so many things. Though engagement is so poor, I've spoken to a few close friends of mine, and I asked them, in reality, how much time have you spent improving your LinkedIn? And one friend said, on average, 5 minutes per year. He agreed with me with that statement that I made. But he said his profile is relatively the same since he had entered into a master's program. And that's like a long, long time ago. Because, people are mission driven, okay? And those people who are mission driven are very seldom self-conscious about their own image. They're not self-driven. Self-driven is maybe the wrong describer. They're not self-absorbed. Okay? So as an employer, a lot of the time for work to be yielded, let's say you're paying a laborer $15 an hour. Let's say you're paying a laborer $10 an hour, and you wish to get $13 worth of value out of that employee. If you're able to further reduce that salary, then you can yield more based on how much you are spending. And you just need to be able to manage how much work is rendered at what quality. So it's relatively simple. It's quite linear. As workplace complexity increases, this is not so simple because processes are interdependent, and it's very hard for a person as a single individual to sit in a chair to assume someone's actual value. Because we're quite basic, we still trade mollusks. How do you pronounce that word? Mollusks, like shells, in beads for labor and work rendered. And this is how we've been designed genetically. We're still cave people in some sense. The world is based on price economics, and people are price sensitive for consumer goods. And this is very true. That's why Amazon is winning, because they have the ability to control pricing. So much so that they can actually force suppliers to reduce prices because they themselves are having a desire to improve the viability of their platform to be used versus another one. So these are commodities. Let's say toilet paper is Amazon has been very famous for squeezing their suppliers on, and a lot of other basic goods, and a lot of staples. Let's say Campbell's soup. Okay. Now, if the consumer is price sensitive, it also makes Amazon price sensitive. So it goes to the manufacturer, who in turn becomes price sensitive. Now, if they have an executable process, they themselves will seek ways to which they can reduce their own expenses within their operation. And one of these things is increasing the productivity per dollar of labor and or workers within that company or organization or factory, etc. The cost of labor typically results in the unit final price. So if you're not Apple, okay, actually even Apple is extremely price sensitive. That's why, they're using Foxconn and they're manufacturing in China. So I would actually take back what I just said a few seconds ago. even Apple is price sensitive to the cost of labor in the final price. They would be able to be less sensitive because they make a great product, but they have designed their business in a way where they they delegate that basic labor to another company, and they themselves focus on the single product, and then they produce 1 billion units of it, right? And it's true. The cost of Apple has a massive profit margin, so they will be able to eat it, but most businesses, a great business has a 15% profit margin. Let's say 80% of their expenses is in labor, right? If they can reduce labor costs by 10%, right, then they can improve their profitability by 8%. So that's great. So everyone is looking for how to perceive value within the labor pool, and that's where we come in. We're coming in with this competence valuation platform as an idea and it actually will be built quite soon, because once work rendered can somehow be decided upon in an executable process consistently at a certain quality, then people can define a consistent and efficient method of compensating individuals for that ability, and they will be able to reduce their own expenses. When that happens, all parties benefit, because all things reduce in expenses, because everything is interdependent. Okay? And the world will become more competitive in some regard, but there will be a benefit to the worker, where they will be exposed to increased responsibility and a higher volume of whichever way they are actually suited or are desired to seek. And employers will benefit based on this high quality competency with a larger pool of candidates. So, like I said, it is all interdependent, and it's all very important. Employers are typically more sophisticated in spending capital for investment. That's true. If you're running a business, you have a perception of when money is earned in the business, how is the best to deploy it. This is generally speaking true. If you are a laborer, at times you may have a better perception of where money can be used in the micro sense, but in the macro sense, not necessarily so. But 10 micros for sure can have a result on can have a macro effect. So I'm not discounting the ability of people lower in the totem pole to assume where capital is best spent, but generally speaking, employers are thus reducing the labor expense for businesses, increases retained earnings. So that's critical for a business to grow, and in which people who are in the business already may benefit from increased responsibility. So there are positive effects for people who are paid less based on their process, their competence process protocols. All right. The cost of the employee does not suppose quality or loyalty. I mean, it's absolutely true. It doesn't matter how much you pay someone. If some people decide to leave work for a number of reasons, and it has nothing to do with the desire of being paid more. And in fact, there's a lot of information actually counterintuitively stating that people who are paid too much for their work may be emboldened to seek higher paying work, as crazy as it sounds. So it goes into the what's the minutia of the actual discussion. So an employer, it is imperative, as almost an insurance policy, that anything happens to their workforce, they have immediate access to people of relevant competency, or they risk damaging their business by not having certain processes within the organization executed upon. The potential for increasing, excuse me, let me just check something. The potential for increasing the productivity from a lower compensation level is to your benefit during negotiation for workplace responsibility. So let's say, for example, as this is now from the opposite perspective, for example, a worker deems that they are underpaid. When they go to seek a way to increase their income before they actually, let's say, decide to leave a company, which is very important, that's also another important thing to manage. You want to allow people the knowledge that they can accrue responsibility and improve their compensation. That's also something very important. But not only that, when a person does approach you and seeks for a greater compensation level, they start at a lower point, you can delegate greater responsibility to this individual, and you have the knock-on effects of greater output, greater yield, even though this individual is paid more because you've started at a lower point. So it's very responsible for an employer to sometimes not pay enough in the beginning, okay? Because it creates precedence, and it's a strong psychological anchor for both parties, okay? So at the end of the day, where do you find these people? If you are curious about how to find people for your own business, please send an email at info@opportunity.to. You will be rewarded with, I would say, beta access. So we're not even in production yet, but the concept is so revolutionary. I've been thinking of putting a lot of my own personal resources into developing this, and making a pool of actually delegating a workforce to actually get this thing in motion. So where do you find these people? I will get you in on it if you send an email at info@opportunity.to, and you'll have exclusive access to the beta, okay? this is something big. And if you got a business, this will help you a lot. So again, info@opportunity.to, and if you have any questions about this, please send an email, of course, to info@opportunity.to. My name is Casper. I really look forward to talking to you about this, and we will be expanding this idea very aggressively. And like I said, I will be using a lot of my own personal resources to get this off the ground as soon as possible. So again, info@opportunity.to. I look forward to speaking to you. Okay, thank you. Have a nice day. Bye bye.